Picture this: the Sunshine State, famous for pristine beaches, year-round warmth, and zero state income tax, is watching thousands of residents pack their bags and head for the exits. While everyone's been talking about people flooding into Florida, there's a darker story unfolding in cities across the state, where the population exodus has reached crisis levels. These aren't just minor dips in census numbers. We're talking about communities hemorrhaging residents at rates that would shock most Americans. And the reasons why? They're not what you'd expect. Let's be real for a second. Florida has been sold as the American dream destination for decades. Retire in paradise, they said. Build your business in a tax-friendly state, they promised. But something's gone terribly wrong in certain Florida cities, and the data tells a story that real estate agents definitely don't want you to hear. In the past 3 years alone, some of these cities have lost between 5 and 15% of their population. That's not just people relocating to another neighborhood. That's entire communities disappearing, schools closing, and local economies crumbling under the weight of mass departure. Starting with a city that might surprise you, we need to talk about Hialeah. Located just northwest of Miami, this once thriving city of over 230,000 people is experiencing an alarming population decline. Between 2020 and 2023, Hialeah lost approximately 11,000 residents, representing nearly a 5% drop. Now, you might think that's not catastrophic, but here's the shocking part. This is happening in a region where overall growth continues in surrounding areas. So why are people specifically fleeing Hialeah? The cost of living has skyrocketed to unsustainable levels. The median home price in Hialeah jumped from around $250,000 in 2019 to over $420,000 by 2023. That's a 68% increase in just 4 years. Meanwhile, the median household income barely budged, sitting at around $38,000 annually. Do the math on that one. You've got families trying to afford homes that cost 11 times their annual income. Insurance costs have compounded the problem, with homeowners' insurance premiums in Hialeah averaging over $6,000 per year, more than triple the national average. Add property taxes, HOA fees, and maintenance, and you're looking at a financial nightmare that's forcing longtime residents to admit defeat and leave. But it gets worse when you look at the infrastructure challenges. Traffic congestion in Hialeah ranks among the worst in the nation. Commuters spend an average of 43 minutes each way traveling to work, eating up nearly an hour and a half of their day sitting in gridlock. The city's aging infrastructure hasn't kept pace with previous growth spurts, leading to frequent flooding during the rainy season, power outages, and water quality concerns that have residents questioning whether staying is worth the struggle. Moving north, Jacksonville is experiencing something unprecedented for Florida's largest city by land area. Despite the state's reputation for growth, Jacksonville's urban core has been losing residents at an accelerating pace. Data from 2023 shows that nearly 14,000 people left Jacksonville proper, with the decline concentrated in neighborhoods that were once considered desirable. The city's population growth rate has dropped to just 0.3%, compared to the state average of 1.9%, and projections suggest this trend is worsening. Crime statistics tell part of the story. Jacksonville's violent crime rate sits at 6.8 incidents per 1,000 residents, significantly higher than the Florida average of 3.8. Property crime rates are equally concerning, with car thefts increasing by 32% between 2021 and 2023. Residents report feeling unsafe in neighborhoods where they've lived for decades, and police response times have stretched to an average of 18 minutes for non-emergency calls due to understaffing and budget constraints. The economic picture isn't much brighter. While Jacksonville attracted some corporate relocations, the jobs created haven't matched the cost of living increases. The median home price has climbed to $315,000, yet the median household income remains stuck at $54,000. Young professionals and families are realizing they can get better value and opportunities in cities like Raleigh, Nashville, or even staying in higher-cost cities up north where salaries actually justify the expenses. The result? A brain drain that's leaving Jacksonville struggling to maintain its economic momentum. Now here's where things get really interesting. Homestead, sitting at the southern tip of Miami-Dade County, is experiencing an exodus that's directly linked to climate reality. This city of approximately 75,000 has lost over 4,000 residents since 2021, and the pace is accelerating. Hurricane Andrew devastated this area in 1992, but the vulnerability has only increased with rising sea levels and intensifying storms. Insurance companies have essentially abandoned Homestead. Citizens Property Insurance, Florida's insurer of last resort, now covers over 60% of homeowners in the area because private insurers have pulled out entirely or priced themselves beyond affordability. We're talking annual premiums exceeding $12,000 for modest homes, and that's if you can even get coverage. After Hurricane Irma in 2017 and Hurricane Ian's impact in 2022, many residents faced claim denials, dropped coverage, or premium increases that doubled or tripled overnight. The fear is palpable and justified. Homestead sits at an elevation of just 6 feet above sea level. Climate scientists project that routine tidal flooding could impact the area within the next 15 to 20 years, making parts of the city essentially uninsurable and unsellable. Residents are reading the writing on the wall and getting out while they still can, before their properties become completely worthless. The median home value has actually declined by 8% since 2021, even as prices soared elsewhere in Florida. That's a market screaming, "abandoned ship," if there ever was one. Heading to the Gulf Coast, we find Fort Myers dealing with the aftermath of Hurricane Ian's direct hit in September 2022. This isn't just about storm recovery, it's about residents realizing they can't keep rebuilding their lives every few years. Fort Myers lost approximately 9,000 residents between 2022 and 2024, representing about 4% of its population. The psychological toll of living in constant fear of the next big storm has proven too much for thousands of families. The financial devastation extended far beyond immediate storm damage. Businesses that had operated for generations closed permanently. The job market contracted significantly, with unemployment spiking to nearly 7% in early 2023, compared to the state average of 3.2%. Insurance settlements took months or even years to process, leaving homeowners trapped in financial limbo. Many discovered their policies didn't cover what they thought, finding themselves tens of thousands of dollars short on rebuilding costs. Real estate agents in Fort Myers report a fundamental shift in the market. Properties that would have sold within days before Hurricane Ian now sit for months. Sellers have slashed prices by 15 to 20%, and they're still struggling to find the buyers. Why? Because potential buyers are finally doing the risk assessment that should have happened years ago. They're calculating not just the purchase price, but the total cost of ownership in a hurricane-prone area with astronomical insurance, the likelihood of future damage, and the question of whether they'll even be able to sell when they're ready to move. For many current residents, the answer has become crystal clear. Get out now while someone will still buy. And it gets worse when we examine Deltona, a city of nearly 90,000 residents in Volusia County. This community has been hemorrhaging population since 2021, losing over 5,000 residents, or nearly 6% of its population. Deltona's problems are multifaceted, creating a perfect storm that's driving people away in droves. First, there's the affordability crisis. Deltona was once considered an affordable alternative to pricier coastal communities, but that advantage has evaporated. The median home price surged to $345,000, yet the area offers limited employment opportunities. Most residents commute over 30 miles to Orlando or Daytona Beach, spending 2 to 3 hours daily in their cars and burning through gas money that eats into whatever savings they thought they'd gained by living in Deltona. Then there's the infrastructure nightmare. Deltona's road system was never designed for its current population, leading to severe congestion on the few main arteries connecting to major highways. The city has struggled with water quality issues, with boil water notices becoming disturbingly common. Residents complain about inadequate shopping, dining, and entertainment options, forcing them to drive to neighboring cities for basic services. The quality of life equation just doesn't add up anymore, and residents are voting with their feet. Number 4 will blow your mind because we're talking about Miami Beach, the iconic destination that's literally synonymous with Florida glamour. Yes, you heard that right. Miami Beach is losing residents, with census data showing a decline of nearly 3,000 permanent residents since 2020, representing a 4.3% drop. While tourists still flood in and luxury condos continue rising, the people who actually live and work in Miami Beach are fleeing. The cost of living has reached absurd levels that disconnect entirely from local wages. A one-bedroom apartment averages $4,000 monthly, and that's not in a luxury building. That's just standard housing. Service workers, teachers, nurses, and police officers literally cannot afford to live in the community they serve. The median rent consumes 72% of median income, an unsustainable ratio that's forcing working-class residents to relocate to more affordable areas. But here's the kicker. Even wealthy residents are leaving. Sea level rise isn't some distant future problem in Miami Beach. It's happening right now. King tide flooding occurs multiple times per year, with seawater bubbling up through storm drains and inundating streets even on sunny days. The city has invested hundreds of millions in pumps and elevated roads, but these are temporary bandages on a mortal wound. Properties that were once considered prime real estate are becoming liabilities. Savvy, wealthy residents are quietly selling before the broader market realizes these areas are doomed, leaving less informed buyers holding worthless assets. Switching to Florida's west coast, we need to discuss Cape Coral, a city that exploded in growth during the housing boom but is now contracting painfully. Between 2022 and 2024, Cape Coral lost over 7,000 residents, approximately 4% of its population. This city of canals was marketed as waterfront wonderland, but that water is becoming a major liability. Hurricane Ian devastated Cape Coral, with storm surge flooding thousands of homes and causing billions in damages. But the departures aren't just about one storm. They're about the realization that Cape Coral's entire development model is fundamentally flawed for the climate reality we're facing. Built on drained wetlands with over 400 miles of canals, the city sits barely above sea level with minimal natural drainage. When storms hit, water has nowhere to go, and the flooding is catastrophic. The insurance situation mirrors Homestead's crisis. Premiums averaging $10,000 annually have become the norm, and coverage gets harder to obtain with each passing year. Property values have started declining, down 7% since 2022 in flood-prone areas. Residents who once dreamed of waterfront retirement are now trapped in homes they can't sell for what they owe, facing a choice between strategic default or continuing to pay for a depreciating asset in an increasingly dangerous location. Now, let's talk about Lakeland, positioned between Tampa and Orlando. This city of roughly 115,000 has lost approximately 5,000 residents since 2021, a decline that's shocking considering its central location. The problems plaguing Lakeland reveal how Florida's growth model is failing working families across the state. Property taxes have surged as home values inflated, but Lakeland hasn't seen corresponding improvements in services or infrastructure. Schools are overcrowded and underfunded, ranking below state averages in performance metrics. The job market offers primarily low-wage service positions, with median household income of just $47,000, struggling to cover costs that keep climbing. Healthcare access is limited, with residents reporting difficulties finding primary care physicians accepting new patients. Crime has become a growing concern, with property crime rates increasing 23% between 2020 and 2023. Residents describe a deteriorating sense of community as transience increases and long-term neighbors move away. The city lacks the cultural amenities and recreational opportunities that might compensate for other challenges, leaving residents feeling they're paying Florida prices for subpar quality of life. The calculation is simple. Why stay in Lakeland when you can move to Georgia, North Carolina, or Tennessee and get more for less? Approaching our final cities, we can't ignore Port St. Lucie, which has experienced a surprising population decline of over 4,000 residents since 2022. This Treasure Coast city grew rapidly in the 2000s, but is now dealing with the consequences of poorly planned expansion. Infrastructure can't support the population that exists, let alone continued growth. Traffic congestion on US 1 and Interstate 95 has reached nightmarish levels, with commuters to Palm Beach or Miami facing 2-hour drives each way. The job market within Port St. Lucie remains anemic, forcing most working residents into lengthy commutes. The cost of living has soared, with median home prices hitting $390,000 while local wages stagnate. Insurance costs average $8,000 annually, and property taxes have increased 38% since 2019. Residents feel trapped in a bedroom community with all the costs of desirable Florida locations, but none of the benefits, and they're cutting their losses and leaving. And number one, the city experiencing perhaps the most troubling exodus in Florida, Pensacola. This panhandle city has lost over 8,000 residents since 2020, representing a 7% population decline. Pensacola's problems stem from a perfect storm of economic stagnation, environmental disasters, and infrastructure failures that have created an unsustainable situation. The economy relies heavily on military installations and tourism, both subject to unpredictable fluctuations. Job growth has been essentially flat, while costs have surged in line with the rest of Florida. The median household income of $43,000 ranks among the lowest in the state, yet housing costs have climbed to match more prosperous areas. Environmental concerns compound these challenges with frequent algae blooms, beach erosion, and pollution affecting tourism revenues and quality of life. Hurricane Sally in 2020 and subsequent storms have made insurance nearly impossible to obtain at reasonable rates. Many residents are paying premiums exceeding 15% of their home's value annually, an absolutely crushing expense. The city's tax base is shrinking as residents leave, forcing service cuts that make the area even less attractive, creating a downward spiral that shows no signs of stopping. So there you have it. 9 Florida cities where the dream has turned into a nightmare, where residents are making the difficult decision to leave despite years or even decades of roots in their communities. These aren't just statistics. They're real people, real families, and real businesses deciding that the Sunshine State no longer offers the life they want or can afford. The question isn't whether these cities will continue losing residents. The data makes that answer clear. The question is whether Florida's policymakers will address the underlying issues of affordability, insurance, infrastructure, and climate vulnerability before the exodus spreads to even more communities. If you found this information valuable, hit that subscribe button because we're tracking these trends as they develop. Drop a comment and let me know. Are you considering leaving Florida or have you already made the move? Your story matters and thousands of others are facing the same decision right now.